Joe, it's great to have you on our BibliU podcast. We have just kicked these off again recently, having gone through a break over the coronavirus period. So great to have you on. So to kick things off, it'd be really helpful to understand a bit better about your role at the University of Leicester. We know that you've been interim library director recently, and your kind of main focus for providing content for students, like what the purpose is and what the strategy is behind that.
Okay, so I'm currently Deputy University Librarian at the University of Leicester, and having previously been Associate Director for Resources and Information, my role hasn't totally changed, but I'm responsible for information resources and content. Is a large part of my role around and collections and collection development and strategic direction of supporting research and learning at the university. I'm the budget holder, so I have budgetary responsibilities and various teams. The new roles that I've picked up are around space and student engagement and student experience, using the library space and study space, not just in the library building but across the university. So trying to link up the collections and the student experience and the use of space in both a physical and the digital environment. So we're really interested in providing access to content in whichever form and format that our students are requiring.
And Joe, I know that you had, I'm not sure if it was the bookstore space, but it was somewhere near the library, in the library, that you'd set up a virtual reality space with some virtual reality headsets and whatnot, and probably ties a bit into what you've just mentioned there. Are you still doing the virtual reality experiment, or do you have other experiments like that you're running at the moment?
Yeah, so we've got the as you say, Dave, with the room at the front of the library, so it's in a really sort of central place on campus and has that digital perspective. We're starting to work with a new institute that the university is setting up, a new research institute, the Digital Culture Institute, which is very much a partnership and working with creative computing and the heritage sector and the civic university, and to develop VR spaces and maker spaces, and in utilising that and interactive walls and online exhibition spaces. So to actually engage the community with both from a research perspective, but also from a learning and teaching perspective, in the digital space and what's possible, and experimentation and whatever. So that should be launching or relaunching in September as that kind of space. So there'll be some official announcements coming out about that soon.
Very exciting. Yeah, I remember being struck when I saw it, and this was some years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Entering the library, seeing kind of virtual reality set up with some headsets, and I remember some students that are actually using it. Of all the libraries I've been into, it's probably kind of the most kind of like technological, futuristic start. You know, a lot of libraries do have high tech within them somewhere. But that's kind of like the first thing you see as you come in. I remember being struck. I was like, wow, this is cool. I think these guys will be looking to do some like innovative things. So yeah, I do remember that. And I don't know about you, but I've been to a few like museum, like art gallery things with virtual reality now, and it seems to be like a really important part of the future for people to interact with information or whatnot. So it'd be really interesting to see what sort of applications virtual reality can have in the library as well in the future. I'm not aware of too many kind of applications right now, but I'm sure in the future it'll be used for all sorts of things. So it's an exciting space.
I think that's what we're interested in as well. I mean, we've had conversations around in a museum application, sort of the never-ending museum exhibition-y type space, and how you can then use that application within the library space, and making collections and content more visible as well. So sort of base things around the collection and the content that we have.
Yeah, I know in medicine there's some software available on virtual reality for doing like sort of anatomy work and interacting with I suppose bodies and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool things coming, but I guess it's all pretty early stage at the moment.
That's right. Yeah.
And in terms of because in your previous role you sort of oversaw book procurement in general, monographs and textbooks, as well as many other types of resources. What do you think the key challenges are at the moment in that area, and how have those key challenges changed from maybe like 2, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And I guess, has anything been solved, or have challenges just changed somewhat, or are they the same?
I think the main challenge is in moving from a physical space to a digital space, and being able to make that breadth of content and the right kind of content available to our users to support what their requirements are, and getting the balance between the physical stock and the digital stock right. So you're starting to see this. There's definitely the definite flip to wanting content available digitally, but also you're still getting that. We need that hybrid model. We still need physical collections, and getting the balance right, and then it becomes about affordability and sustainability. So yeah, we can get the content, we can source the content, but can we afford it in the format or multiple formats? And I think there's a lot of challenges around making collections inclusive and more diverse, and the availability of content in this right space and in the right formats, as I say. That's kind of, the agenda's moved really quickly, certainly over the last 2 years, and I think the pandemic itself has actually pushed that agenda forward more quickly. So so you're seeing that the requirements quite rapidly change, and I think that it was inevitable, but the pace of change has definitely speeded up, and there's been a definite shift from everybody talking about physical to everybody talking about digital and the online, and how we make content more available. And I think the other main shift is around the inclusivity and diversity of collections as well, and things outside of mainstream publishing, which is a challenge in of itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like the decolonization of the curriculum and that sort of area. Yeah. It's clearly a hot topic at the moment as well. And in terms of your philosophy, I think last we haven't spoken on the topic for a while, but your kind of philosophy or kind of guidelines were that you try to get some digital in everything, and then perhaps some print in everything as well. So kind of digital first where you could, but not necessarily digital for everyone. Has that kind of philosophy and guideline changed, or is it still broadly the same?
It's still broadly the same. I mean, we've been digital first approach for a long time, but I think certainly in the last couple of years we've had it's more digital rather than physical, and some of that's out of necessity, but actually there's a change in attitude actually around how people want to ingest content or use content. And less print, because the other thing is around affordability is we whereas we were perhaps buying hybrid, so we were buying digital and we were buying physical, actually we can't afford to do both. So we've actually shifted, if it's, you know, digital, and starting to encourage people to look at what we've got available, or what is available in a digital or electronic environment, an online environment.
And on that note, and then I guess also the ebook SOS movement, which we saw recently, and it was trending on Twitter, and that, you know, letter sent to the government, etc. Have you noticed content over time becoming more expensive or more affordable, both digital and print content? Like, how have they kind of changed over time?
Yeah, so I mean, we've certainly seen the digital content becoming more expensive over time, whereas you would expect it to start to even itself out. And you've still got it used to be that the cost model, it's around the cost models and revenue, I guess. And as print sales drop off, then it seems to me that you're getting those costs added on into the digital sales, instead of actually you're getting more digital sales, because we're not unique in our situation, that you're getting more digital sales, but you're still charging more. So I can't honestly say that we've seen a decrease in costs. The only decrease in cost we've had is with the VAT coming off of the
yes.
Yeah. So with no VAT, then you get more you'll be able to purchase more.
More effective budget.
More effective budget. But in terms of percentage on top of a standard text, the prices have definitely gone up across the board, I would say, in the E.
Yeah, okay. And do you find yourself, are there many scenarios where, or for your team, where the print's actually much more affordable than digital, and though you prefer digital, print makes more sense?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in some multiple copy purchasing, it would be far cheaper. But actually, we've resisted sort of going back, taking that step back and buying print. Because once you make that change, you don't really want to lose momentum. I mean, we're using,
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean,
and also, I mean, I suppose the other thing is we can see circulation has gone down. So even if you compare where we of physical stock, circulation of physical stock is a real downward trend. It has been for lots of years, but even if you look at the last full year pre-pandemic and against this year, the trend is it's such a steep decline in physical circulation. I mean, some of that is because we're buying more E and we're pushing people down the E route, but actually the trend is there.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and clearly there's lots of good reasons to go to digital. So it would seem that it would make more sense to kind of set the incentives in that direction rather than the other. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And in terms of your point around inclusivity and diversity, and it's quite a challenging one for the library, no doubt, because you're trying to deal with, here are the resources we're being requested to get, but then also we need to add diversity, inclusivity to that. So it's trying to juggle the two things. What are some of the initiatives that the library's looked at in that regard?
Yeah, so the university has set up an institute of inclusive Institute of Inclusive Curriculum.
Got us.
Sorry, something like that. Anyway, the library is working closely with the institute in order to work on getting inclusive content into reading lists. So sort of there's a whole liaison piece with through our academic librarians, with the departments and with the schools, in order to add diverse content into reading lists. So we're starting to see reading lists come through with more inclusive content coming into it, and then there's other initiatives that we're running. So we run a library champion scheme, whereby we have student volunteers who are looking at various coming in and looking at inclusive content for reading lists, but also what we call represent, which is making sure that all voices are represented in content that we provide. Now, that's up to now largely has been in the physical space, so sort of a mixture of fiction and non-fiction, but we're trying to move it into the online space as well. So directly with the students, directly with the schools and departments, and trying to mainstream it in that it comes into our processes. It's just that, it's not something special, but it's mainstream, and it comes into our main processes and routes. So it's nothing, as I say, not special in that sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's clearly a hot topic, I think, through the sector, and a lot of institutions are trying to look at changing the curriculum or making it more inclusive and whatnot. And it's clearly quite a challenge to with the kind of limited resourcing and staffing and whatnot to get it done. But that's really cool. I haven't actually heard of a specific institute before to help with that. It might be a kind of Leicester first thing, but it's really cool thing that's being done. And in terms of when you were interim library director, what was kind of different about the role, and did it give you any insights and perspectives into your current role as well, and as a deputy university librarian?
I think what surprised me was the sort of the change, the different level. So you sort of you sort of thinking, well, I know about strategy and I know about this and whatever, but actually it is that you expected to operate at a different level, and you're talking to different people, and you're suddenly part of the senior leadership of the university as opposed to senior leadership of the division. And so it actually opens doors to other areas. So, being interim university librarian or university librarian actually has weight within departments, and you sort of, actually, I'm somebody who can get some things done, and you're talking as equals, and which sounds strange but it's just so at sort of a run down, you're very much divisional focus, although you're working across the institution and partnership working. But so I think, sort of in answer to your question, it's strategic, it's a very different level, it's different conversations. You have the weight of the whole division on your shoulders as well. I think that's and you're trying to influence the university in order to do things which has consequences on to how you run the service. I think in terms of my current role, what it's enabled me to do is understand, I just need to go to this person or that person, and actually I'm more widely known at the right levels in order to affect change. And I'm on committees now, which I wasn't before. So you can, it actually helps with progressing my current role, or has helped.
Yeah, that makes sense. An interesting point you raised about, like, having to manage kind of the expectations and needs of the team, the library team, and then kind of a different set of expectations of the university leadership team, and being the bridge between the two can't be an easy one. And also really interesting how it's like kind of, new relationships, but given you influence within the institution as well. BibliU and the University of Leicester have worked together for many years now, and University of Leicester, became a BibliU partner when we were a tiny startup, and at that point were the largest partner we had. And I'm curious to know, what your perspective has been on your relationship with BibliU and experience with us, and how that's changed over that period of time as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were really keen to be involved with you right at the outset, as you know. You persuaded us, but we were interested in your platform and the models that you were advocating, and we saw it as an opportunity to dip our toes into the e-textbook market, and make e-textbooks available to our students. And also, I guess, although we didn't think of this in this way at the time, but start to influence the direction of travel and development, and by working with you as well, not as, I mean, kind of as partners, but as, sort of colleagues, and you've educated us, and I hope we've educated you as well around libraries and library models and routes. And I think over time we've changed the way we're using, because for us the key thing was to keep it as an e-text model that was sustainable. So we weren't sort of, okay, we could invest this year, but next year we can't because we haven't got the money, or so to work out how we included e-textbooks in our main library budget, and then keep it sustainable and cost effective, and change content year on year, and utilize the different utilize your platform to the best extent, and to utilize the statistics and analysis in order to determine what we should do year on year. And I think the introduction of your UAA model has actually helped a lot in being able to maximize the amount of content that we provide, but also make it more cost effective and self-sustaining in that respect. And yeah, so I think the relationship has definitely developed over time, and I think in terms of actual use, although we've changed titles, we've kept some titles, and you can see a definite increase in use or an activity on the textbooks that we make available, and the added extras, the text to speech and the note taking and the etc.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point how you mentioned that we've been helped a lot by you, Joe, and I think user activated acquisition is a good example of that, where you told us very clearly from the outset that how we were working together initially wasn't going to work in the long term for Leicester, and you gave us some very specific feedback about what you needed, and you were one of the very first to do user activated, and we kind of designed that model with publishers to address exactly what you said, where you can look to provide e-textbooks for a broad variety of students, pay for what you use in a sustainable manner. So you're absolutely right, and that relationship for us has been critical in helping develop the new product, right? So that's been super helpful. And then in terms of the pandemic and COVID, what's changed over that period at the university? Well, and of that change, what do you think will stay, and what do you think might go back to the kind of the pre-COVID time?
I think the move for learning, teaching to go online. I think that has been a definite sea change, and the way that we as the library provision that online learning and support the online learning. So I think, I mean, even in terms of, if we're talking purely library, online instruction, information skills training, support, one-to-one interactions with the students, group interactions with students, is happening in an online mode and in a physical mode. So it's that mixed economy, and I think that will continue, and it will increasingly become more in the digital space, I think, but still retaining that ability to reach our students where they need, where at the point of need. But certainly in learning and teaching, it's very much more that the blended approach, and I think that's what we're trying to address as well in the library approach as well. So to mirror how learning's happening in from the library perspective. I mean, in terms of service, we've kept something. So we introduced a click and collect service and a postal loan service, and we've retained some elements of that, but actually largely they've gone back to where they were. I think the other thing that we did do was, we had a request for something physical, we would look to see whether we could get it in a digital way rather than as a physical, including chapters and articles and whatever. So to do that conversion, so looking at our document supply, sort of that more bespoke piece. I've got student X who wants a chapter from Y. Let's see how we can facilitate that. So that kind of and changing use of content. I think that's another thing that's happened, and more use of audio visual type content, so video content and that type of material where we weren't seeing them before, or to such an extent we're actually getting more and more requests for that kind of content. So really it's marrying the at the point of need, is mirroring the point of need. So is it, do the students need us in a digital environment, or do they need us in a physical environment? Or how can we make the two marry up together?
Yeah, that makes sense. An interesting point now, you're talking about trying to disaggregate content and piece together, like, a chapter or an article, and providing specifically bespoke sets for a given student or a given course, rather than just taking a collection or a whole book or whatever. And it's something we hear a lot in the market, and hopefully in the future, our publishing partners are looking at bringing through more of these models as well. I know a number of years ago, Pearson did offer individual chapters. I think it may have been only to students and only in the US, but it's certainly been done before. And I think a question of, can it be done in this context? I don't know, but definitely an interesting area to explore in the future.
I mean, I know there's talk of looking at e-textbooks that have been generated by bespoke e-textbooks, but sort of utilising open access content. But you could use mainstream published content to mash up, using an old phrase from years ago, mash up content types into a bespoke textbook, I guess.
No, true. Yeah, you can incorporate, and you could incorporate other things as well, like articles or videos, YouTube videos and whatnot, and create a bespoke piece, which is really interesting. So, Joe, we don't have too much more time, so I'm going to finish with another question. So, I know you're a fan of Leicester City, and you've obviously celebrated the FA Cup win last year, which I gather is the first in the history, despite many attempts in the final. How do you think Leicester are going to fare next season in the Premier League? What's your position pick if you had to guess?
Well, position pitch, I think top 10. I know we dropped into the bottom half of the table this year, but I think top 10. Hopefully we're up in the European Champions League spots. But I think Leicester probably mid-table team. And you mark my words that we'll be dropping down into the Championship.
No, hope not. That would be a disaster. And do you think Brendan Rodgers will stay next season?
I think he'll see another season. Yeah. It depends whether he gets investment on new players, because I think the squad's been a bit light this year.
Yes, yeah, I think a lot of the players were here when he started years ago, so it's a good point. Yeah, and he obviously has a lot of goodwill from winning the cup and doing well in getting into Europe twice. So, yeah.
But we last year we were sort of top 6, and this year we're 14 as of yesterday. Right?
Yes, yeah, I mean, it's the way of the sporting world, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.